channel. Hello, I'm so happy and excited to discuss burning questions that people have when it comes to going from IC product managers to PM people managers.
Hey, Nancy, so good to be here. Super excited. Hi, my name is Hiral Shah. I've been a product leader for more than 10 years now. Started my early career in Apple in engineering and then transitioned into product. Being more recently, I was at Amplitude as leading one of their new product lines.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump right into this. Let's start with the first question. How to switch from IC to people manager as a product manager?
Yeah, Nancy, it is a good question, and I know that is a constant one I get when I'm coaching some of the aspiring product people on my team as well. So I think first and foremost, when you're thinking about even just people management and all, you have to be really good at your own product craft. Like that's the baseline, that's the prerequisite. So I really encourage even people in my team who have grown to be people managers as well, is like just get better first at your craft. So having the right product thinking skills, all of your product craft, and showing that impact on a rigorous basis. I think once you have done that, you've built the trust around you, right, from your leaders and everyone, that you can take on more. And that's where that shift and mind shift is needed. So when I think about the people management, or even how do you kind of grow into it, it's not so much about promotion. It's more a lot about the skills and tactics and practical things that you do. So I want to encourage people on like two dimensions. One is just around business strategy, the vision side of the house, and then the second is about the actual management. And you can acquire both those skills even without getting that title of or actually managing people. So let's get into like the first one, right? The strategy is a big part of it. Like you have to come up and create a vision about the area, about the space that you're doing, have conviction and get the buy-in, because that determines an increased scope that you can then go out and build a team around, if that's where the company also wants to head into. So it has to tie to the company strategy, the product area you're working on, and how do you grow really to do that. Then comes the second piece around the people. And people have to already view you as a leader, which is coaching others, mentoring others, help in all the other recruiting practices. You have to not only show up as a mentor to like peers and junior team members, but also as a representation or representative of the company and the company values. So this you can demonstrate a lot by just, if there is openings, other managers are hiring, go be part of the panel, go help speak on behalf of the company, go recommend, right, and help create a process, or also just drive a lot of it, and put yourself out there in terms of your opinions, how you translate about the company value strategy, and then get others on board. That is the best way. Especially interns is another great way. I've seen a lot of my team like take on mentorship, is just interning the mentors, helping them guide through it, is their first foray. And then as you grow, you can start to acquire a lot of those skills.
Tell us why it's important to represent the company. What is the role of a people manager?
Yeah. So when that's it, it's a fabulous question, Nancy. Like that is the hardest part, right? Like people always think about this as like a promotion, a very linear thing, but when you get into people management, you are really not only your perspective, right? It's not about just what I think of this is how PM is done and all. It's what works for this company, because ultimately it's going to be your entire team that is going to be the most successful if you are successful, right? And that's what you want to show. That's where that company values comes in, because a company's style of doing things and a perspective might be slightly different, right? And every company, we've heard this a lot, PM in every company means different things. And that's kind of what everyone else, so like your skip level, your stakeholders, they want to see that out of you, because that's where trust gets built. That's where the relationship truly has value. And that's where representing yourself as a company is really, really important in kind of growing your team as well.
I love that. And one element that I learned was to be a successful people manager at this company, you have to become an agent for this company.
Yes. Yes.
Because, like you said, and similar to how every PM, every company has a slightly different take on PMs, same thing for people managers. Every company has a slightly different take on what a manager takes, and what a manager needs to be. And different companies have different philosophies, and different companies have different ways of working. And being a manager, most people just think you're leading a team, but you're a bridge between senior leadership and team, and you have to be able to represent your team and represent the senior leadership and be that bridge and
Yeah, I
have
resonate a lot.
yeah, and this is also where communication becomes, super important. do
Yeah.
you do you truly understand what this company needs? Like, can
Mhm.
you translate the company strategy so that your team can resonate? Because company strategy by definition is going to be very broad and very high level. Like, how does that even relate to the team? How do you communicate that level, like go really broad and translate it so that your team really understands and resonates?
Yeah, yeah, I resonate a lot with that, Nancy. Sometimes I used to joke like my role here is a translator.
Yeah.
Any people is just right, like taking that and translating, whether it be drawing all the dotted lines on like how does the work they do tie up to that, and then getting others excited about like to see that and viewpoint and
Yes.
see and for that the first part of it is it's not only just the how the communication is just having the courage to put yourself out there and sharing that, right? Like before you become a people manager is like sharing what you have understood
Yes.
so that everyone can see you can demonstrate that skill.
Yes, and explaining why things are done this way.
Yes.
Because different companies have different philosophies. They believe so. For example, Facebook is a strength-based company.
Mm.
They really like to lean into people's strengths. So it's not so much about, oh, let's fix your weaknesses. Like, philosophically, that
Yeah.
company just operates that way. And the other philosophy that Facebook has is, we're gonna, reward based on impact, not based on hard effort, not based on hard work. So that changes how we operate. So then we have to translate what the company needs and what the company expects so
Yep.
that the team can operate accordingly.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
And then tell us about the mindset shift. As a PM, we are uh, doing a lot of the work on our own. But as a people manager, we now have to work through others, work through the team. What does that feel like? How do we get better at that?
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely the hardest thing I've seen, like me included, right early on in my career, have had my own ways of learning about it, right? So it is, as you said, it is a mindset shift, right? Like you are influencing others. But when I think about product management itself is an influence without authority. So you've practiced that skill already when you're a good product person. Now it's just doing that at a slightly different dimension and a different scale when you're starting to manage people. So in that scenario, right, it is a lot about you have to be a better coach so that it's not about editing the document someone has written, it's about guiding them so that they can edit the document better the next time. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that is more about your impact is going to be how your team performs and your team's impact, and that's how you start rating yourself. So it's no longer as much as just about the product outcome. And a lot of sometimes I've seen people struggle with that is because they're too stuck on like, hey, what is this feature or what is this product, this is how I wanted it to be, versus really having a much better dialogue and a back and forth to
Mm-hmm.
understand the why and the debate. And one way a lot of people can practice this that I recently learned from some other product leaders was also just, if you're not comfortable, like ask a ton of questions, and that questions itself will help people
Yes.
understand and practice that craft themselves. So like when I have trained my direct report to be a manager last year, it was really just asking them a lot of questions and sometimes pointed, to steer them to the
Love
answer that they will discover on what they should do with their own ICPPM.
Love that. And this is a great segue to our second question, which is best practices as an org leader.
Yeah, and oh my God, like when you think about best practice, there's definitely a lot of them I can like list out at some point. But the ones that do stand apart. So when I think about it, that's why it's called an organization leader, right? It's you're no longer just a manager, just someone who is doing XYZ thing. You are a leader of an organization. So the two big areas tying back to what we were talking about, right, as best practices that I've seen others perform as well, is really thinking about you as a person, also as a team. So it's all now about your team is, and then the second big part about it is the vision, right? And this is vision not just about the strategy, but the vision about your org, on what to look for, what to do. What do you have a vision 2 3 years out? What should your org look like, right? That's how I think about an organization leader, is like, this is where the company is headed, this is its strategy. What does the company need in order to accomplish this strategy? Sometimes they need very fast paced, adaptable, like, I've been in 0 to 1 initiatives at large companies. You are working like a startup within the large company, and you become that bridge we were talking about earlier. So in that scenario, the best practice the org leader has to do is really come up with a vision of what this org should look like a year, 2 years out. What does this company need from this org is a big role to play. And then the second part of it is, now how do I go about building that team? And for that, I'm always thinking about my team as a whole. So whenever, even when I'm creating a job requisition for adding a next new member, I definitely have a set of requirements. They have to meet the PM fundamentals. But one thing I constantly ask is, what does my team as a whole need? How is this next person going to raise the bar for the whole team? So in some cases, like, we're like, okay, we have few more analytical people, so how do I bring in folks who are going to be storytelling? So I'm going to always look for that extended storytelling skill in the next person, while they meet all of the basic requirements that are always needed. So I'd say, that's one thing I've been asked when I've reported into the head of products, like, okay, do you have the right team to solve for this problem that we are about to encounter, or about to take on as a 0 to 1? Now go think about creating the team. And that's how I think about, especially as being a people leader, an organization leader, is to think about your org as collection. And it's almost like a product itself, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you're always adding dimensions to it.
Yeah. And the hard part there is there's a human element in this. We can't manage the org like it's a, like a business. There's people's feelings and connection and anxiety, like all of that is mixed in. So when we're deciding, do we have the right people to achieve what the company wants us to achieve, it can be black and white, but how do we actually manage it the right
Mm.
way? That part I
Yeah,
struggled with.
I resonate. I mean, I don't think it is, like, to your point, it's black and white, or like just a very set of few things. But I can say, like, what has worked for me is, it starts way ahead to having built the right relationship with the members in your team, right, as an
Right.
organization. So you really know what their strengths are, areas are, and what their motivations are. I used to do this exercise with my team, is give them a list of what motivates you right now. Take these 100 coins and put them and distribute what is motivating. That really helped me to see. And in some cases, the answer to it comes out to be is like, right now, this org cannot fulfill your needs, and you might have to join
Yeah.
another part, and helping find that right fit for them. It's like, hey, this is where I will need you to stretch. Are you ready for it? Do you want what? Like, if it
Mm-hmm.
is about the skill, we're always there. We can coach them. But if it is more about fulfillment for them and motivation, I have had people where there was like, we were starting a growth org, and I was like, okay, this person would be best suited for that. And I had to part ways for someone in my org. So that's how I would think about, like, you're right. It is a people, it is a human element. So there's always, but I think constant communication and staying in sync helps a lot when you're doing.
Absolutely. And there's also another element where you're now, as an org leader, you are most of the time working with other org leaders.
Yes.
Versus before, you're probably just looking inwards and like,
Mm-hmm.
what does my product need, or what does my product line need? But as an org leader, it's like, what do the other orgs need from my org,
Yeah.
and how do the other orgs operate?
Yeah. And
And
there are times when it's also like, like I've seen a lot, like where you have to put out your needs as well, right? So that there are
yes,
people in other orgs who could join. And
yes,
I've always pitched things where sometimes like, hey, do you want to come join? This is a new initiative you're doing, and then someone would
yes,
jump in and take that
yes,
initiative.
yes. And every org would have a slightly different DNA.
Yep.
And then so basically, like, we notice that as a PM, like, we're working with cross-functional partners, but then it kind of just amplifies.
Yes. Yes.
Each level we go up, it just amplifies more and more. And what we start noticing is, as a PM, like, what we're talking about is the product, but as an org leader, what we're talking about is the company. It's the org, and other orgs might not really care about what we do.
Yep.
Um, but then how do we work together?
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say it's like they don't care, but there is always dependency. So it's more a lot about highlighting
Mm,
the needs,
yeah,
right? And having that. So that's why, as to your point here, when you're running an org, right? Like you have your peers, which are other org leaders, and then you have your team as well. But it's more about just having them be aware of like, hey, this is the needs, right? Like, and that's where that vision, going back to what we were talking
true.
previously,
Yes.
is the vision for your org
Mm,
helps a lot. Like, hey, this is where they might be today, but this is where I envision what my org can do, and that's what I'm building towards. So it's not being afraid to put even that out there, right? It's not about what we are today as an organization, and that's kind of where you get the buy-in from the other teams as
yes.
well. Is more about
Yes.
like, this is how we will work together,
Yes.
and having that as part of the vision.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on my channel and sharing your insights with us.
Same here. Thank you, Nancy, for having me. Super excited for people. If you want to ever grab time, feel free to reach out to me. But I'm rooting for everyone to go take on leadership roles.
Yes. How can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm very simple in LinkedIn. It's Shah Hiral, and then from there you'll get my personal Kriya site.
I'm gonna put a link here so people can see.
If you ever want to have any conversation, please reach out. My LinkedIn is here, posted on the slide. So down here. Okay. Yeah, please reach out. My LinkedIn is bottom. So looking forward to hearing from people.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.